is supportive of this piece of legislation, and we're going to give him a couple of minutes now.
Thank you. I met several of you in 2013, 2 years ago, when we passed the expungement law to say that if you've been somebody who's been in prison or had a record because of addiction, if you're clean and you're trying to move forward with your life, that criminal record should not follow you the rest of your life. I'm impressed by these speakers before me who've been such amazing examples of people who have moved out of that place in their lives and have moved on. We need to let people move on. I visited the DORA program in the Salt Lake County Jail a few years ago, and they had a focus group who were meeting, and I think there must have been 70 men in the room in a big circle receiving counseling and treatment and planning for moving on with their lives. When I asked them, how many of you are in here because of drug addiction, which you never had in your life until a legal pain medication was given to you, I was shocked to find out that more than a third of those who were in that jail first became addicted because of a legally prescribed drug for them and their pain. I believe that when we leave people with that addiction from a doctor, if a doctor were to close a surgery and leave a clamp in there, we would very clearly know that the doctor didn't do his due diligence. But when a doctor gives a pain medication and doesn't follow up to ensure that that patient is not left with an addiction, something is wrong, and that needs to change. But what about those other people who become addicted? To think that we treat people with a drug addiction as if they were criminals, when, but for the drug usage, they have done nothing wrong. That's like treating people as criminals and locking them up because they have some other health issue. We wouldn't put somebody in jail because of health issues. Why would we put them in jail because of a drug addiction? Why not this kind of thing? This legislation that we are having this year is a humane treatment for people with health issues that are drug addiction related. You know, I've done a lot of brain research. I'm not a brain researcher, but I play one in the legislature. And I can tell you that this issue it goes far beyond what most people currently understand. In fact, what most judges understand. For example, judges and drug parole officers in studies done in Israel and other countries, and there are multiple studies which show this, if your parole is being considered just before lunch, your chances of getting parole are about 10%. If you get it after lunch, it's 60%. Why? Because the blood glucose levels in the brain affect behavior. They affect judges' behaviors, and judges need to understand that they affect other people's behaviors as well. And part of the making wrong choices has to do with our blood glucose level in our brains, and we ought to take that into consideration. In fact, there is a higher proportion of people in prison who, when they were sentenced, were suffering from hypoglycemia and diabetes than in the general population, because the glucose to the prefrontal cortex, which is that executive functioning of our brain, which helps us control the amygdala impulses and the impulses that we all have, that is inhibited by the lower ability to access glucose. So my point is, I didn't mean to bore you with brain research, but my point is that behavior is much deeper and more complex than just locking people up in prison because they make a mistake.